Hi, my name is Ryan Kendall, and today I'm going to be giving this lesson on the United States government and how it functions. This lesson is going to fulfill New Jersey Common Core Standard 6.1.4.A.4. And that standard says that by the end of grade 4, students should be able to explain how the United States government is organized and how the United States Constitution defines and limits the power of the government. Let's get started. In the 1770s, the colonies in America felt that King George III, who's pictured on the left there, was abusing his power. People were very unhappy with the way they were being governed, and they decided that they needed to be free from the British government in order to have happy and prosperous lives in the new colonies. This led them to come together to create first the Declaration of Independence, which is the picture there that says July 4th, 1776, and then eventually the U.S. Constitution, which is the picture on the bottom right that says We the People. Give the people what they want. The Declaration of Independence was written in 1776, and this was the document that the colonies gave to the British monarchy in order to declare a rebellion from the empire and start their new independent country. It also set for the morals that the U.S. wanted to uphold in their new country, like religious freedom, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and proper representation for all of its citizens. The U.S. Constitution was later created in 1788, and that was in order to set up the government for the new nation. The Constitution set up basically how our government works and how it spreads out the power to avoid tyranny, like the monarchy that the colonies had just managed to escape. And it does this by establishing three different branches of government that all work under the system of checks and balances to make sure that none of them get too strong. Next is on to the three branches. The first branch is the executive branch. Pictured on the top left is the White House, where the president lives. The executive branch is the branch of government responsible for the daily administration of the nation. The president is the head of the executive branch and the head of state, and is responsible for carrying out duties like being commander-in-chief of the entire United States military. He also appoints other heads of state, like the Secretary of State, for example, or any other cabinet member who would be in charge of an administration that runs the government. And he also has the duty of making sure that all of the United States Constitution's laws are upheld to the best of his duty, and that is part of the oath that he takes when he is sworn into office. Next is the legislative branch, which is pictured at the top right, and that's the U.S. Capitol building. The legislative branch, is made up of the House of Representatives and the Senate, two bodies of Congress. And these two bodies are made up of elected officials who work together to create and brainstorm and write and pass laws. This branch's purpose is to make sure that the citizens of their respective states are all represented and represented the right way. For example, the Senate is made up of 100 senators, and that's two for every state of the 50 states. And that makes sure that no state is represented less than any other state. Everyone has some kind of an equal say here. Part of creating this new nation was that we wanted everyone to have an equal say, and by giving every state two senators, you do that. At the same time, you don't want any state to be underrepresented or overrepresented. So you have the House of Representatives to take care of that. House of Representatives is made up of 435 representatives, and that's by population of the state. For example, you don't want a state as small as Rhode Island to have the same Democratic pull as the state of Texas. Obviously, they're hugely different in size, so the House of Representatives is in charge of separating the power by population. And the final branch is the judicial branch. That's pictured at the bottom, and that is the United States Supreme Court building. The judicial branch is in charge of overseeing the United States court system. The Supreme Court is the head of the judicial branch, and that rules whether or not laws passed by the legislative branch and then signed into law by the executive branch are constitutional. The Supreme Court is made up of 9 justices, or judges, and their job is basically to go through all of these new laws and to determine if they uphold the Constitution. If any law isn't upholding the Constitution or in the best interest of the nation, the Supreme Court gets the final say into whether or not that law is abolished or has to be amended. And that leads us to checks and balances. And this is how the branches interact, and it's how the government ensures that it won't ever become a tyranny like under the British monarchy. The executive branch has two checks and balances for the most part. The first is the veto power, and that is of the president. Before any law goes into effect, it comes through Congress, is agreed on by both houses rather, and then goes to the president to be signed into law. If the president feels that this law is unconstitutional or not the best for the nation, he vetoes it, which means he sends it back to Congress where they have to rewrite it and represent it to the president in order for it to be signed into law. The president also has enormous military power. As the commander in chief, he is allowed to send any amount of military forces anywhere in the world that he wants. That being said, he is only allowed to do that for a given amount of time before the Congress has to agree. And if they do not agree and declare war, they have the right to pull these troops out. That leads us to the legislative branch, which is the power to declare war for their first checks and balance. And the power to declare war lies completely in the Congress. The president can send military wherever he wants, but if the Congress doesn't approve his war and fund it, they have the right to remove the troops from wherever he sent them, and the war remains nothing but a military tactic. The legislative branch also has the check and balance of writing and amending laws. If they find something is unconstitutional or not working in the United States government, they write these new laws or they amend the laws that are already there in order to try and fix the situation. And then these laws are sent to the executive branch where the president either signs them into law or vetoes them, and then they can be later reviewed by the judicial branch. And the judicial branch has the greatest check and balance of all by declaring laws unconstitutional. If the judicial branch is given any law that they feel is unconstitutional, they can strike it down without question. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the United States, and they set the law of the land. And what that means is that they have the ultimate check and balance over both of the other branches, and they are the final say as to whether or not something is constitutional or not. In other words, all three of these branches are intertwined, and all three of these branches have to work together if they want a functional government. And this functional government, because of these checks and balances, will always remain fair and just and eliminates tyranny completely. And this concludes the presentation. Thank you.